Hello, welcome to Learn Anatomy with Dr. Vessel. And today we're looking at a very important topic, which is the muscles of the pectoral region. The muscles of the pectoral region include the pectoralis major, pectoralis minor, subclavius, and serratus anterior. But in this video, we'll be looking at just the first two muscles of the pectoral region, which are the pectoralis major and the pectoralis minor. Now for the pectoralis major, it has two heads. It has the clavicular head and the sternocostal head. The clavicular head arises from the medial half of the anterior aspect of the clavicle. The medial half of the anterior aspect of the clavicle, while the sternocostal head arises from the lateral half of the anterior surface of the sternum up to the sixth costal cartilage and the medial part of the second to the sixth costal cartilage and the aponeurosis of the external oblique muscle of the abdomen. It arises from the one lateral half of the anterior surface of the sternum up to the sixth costal cartilage, 2. Medial part of the second to sixth costal cartilage, 3. Aponeurosis of the external oblique muscle of the abdomen. Now for the insertion, it is inserted at the lateral lip of the intertubercular groove of the humerus. The nerves supplied to pectoralis major include the lateral pectoral nerve and the medial pectoral nerve. And for the action of the pectoralis major, for us to know the action of a muscle, you must consider the point of insertion of that muscle and the places that muscle crosses to get to that point of insertion. If a muscle crosses a joint anteriorly, it has the ability to flex that joint. If a muscle crosses a joint anteriorly, it has the ability to flex that joint. If a muscle crosses a joint posteriorly, it has the ability to flex to extend that joint. If a muscle crosses a joint posteriorly, it has the ability to extend that joint. If this is a bone, and this is the medial aspect, this is the inferior aspect, this is the superior aspect, this is the lateral aspect. If a muscle is attached to the medial aspect of a bone, it has the ability to bring the bone towards the midline, which is what adduction. And it also have the ability to medially rotate the bone. It has the ability to medially rotate the bone, provided it's attached to the anterior surface of that bone and towards the medial border. It have the ability to medially rotate the bone. If the muscle is attached to the lateral surface of the bone, it have the ability to adduct the bone, abduction, and it also have the ability to laterally rotate the bone. If a muscle is attached to the superior surface of a bone, it has the ability to elevate the bone, and depending on the aspects of the superior surface it is attached to, it also have the ability to adduct the bone, that's take the bone away from the midline, depending on the aspect. If it attached to the superior surface, it can elevate or adduct the bone. If a muscle is attached to the inferior surface of a bone, it has the ability to depress the bone. So the muscle insertion determines the function of a muscle. And for the pectoralis major muscle, the clavicular head crosses the joint, which is the shoulder joint, so it can flex the arm. Since it crosses the joint, it can flex the arm. Now the sternocostal head is attached to the intertubercular groove, which is located at the anterior aspect of the arm, so it have the ability to adopt the arm. The sternocostal head have the ability to adopt the arm or the humerus towards the midline. It has the ability to adopt the arm, while the whole muscle have the ability to medially rotate. The whole muscle have the ability to medially rotate. Remember, one of the function of the shoulder joint is that it can undergo rotation. So they can undergo circumduction. So the whole muscle have the ability to medially rotate the arm. But with this mnemonic major firm, you can remember the function of the pectoralis major. Major for pectoralis major The F represents flexion, the A represents adduction, while the M represents medial rotation. Now, for the pectoralis minor, it originates from the third, fifth, fourth, fifth rib near the costal cartilage, and it is inserted at the medial border and upper surface of the coracoid process. In our previous video, I gave you a mnemonic that will help you remember the three muscle attachments to the coracoid process, and that mnemonic was COPS. The first two letters of COPS help us remember the coracobrachialis. The next letter P help us remember the pectoralis minor, while the last letter S help us remember the short head of what? The biceps brachii. So with COPS, we can remember the muscles, the three muscles that are attached to the coracoid process of the scapula. So the pectoralis minor is part of that muscle. Now the nerve supplied to the pectoralis minor is the medial pectoral nerve, but it can receive nerve innervation from the lateral pectoral nerve. Now for the action of the pectoralis minor is attached to, if you can see the muscle, how it is going up to be attached to the coracoid process of the scapula. And from there, you can know that this muscle have the ability to pull this thing inferiorly, that's downward, and anteriorly, because the muscle is located at the anterior surface of the pectoral region. So you can pull the scapula downward and anteriorly. Therefore, it undergo this action called protraction. Protraction is pulling the scapula forward. During example, when you are pushing something, the scapula have to pull forward to do the action. When you are punching, the scapula have to pull forward to do the action. Now, the pectoralis minor assists the serratus anterior to make sure that the scapula undergoes that function. Now, it stabilizes the scapula during pulling. It stabilizes the scapula by pulling it anteriorly and inferiorly. It stabilizes the scapula by pulling it anteriorly because it's located at the anterior pectoral region, and inferiorly because of the way it moves up. It pull it inferiorly and anteriorly. It also assists in force inspiration. It also assists in force inspiration. And with this mnemonic, you can remember the functions of the pectoralis minor. Minor spine. The minor help us remember pectoralis minor. The S help us remember that it stabilizes the scapula. The P help us to remember protraction, helps in protraction. The I help us to remember it helps in inspiration, as during force inspiration, it assists in force inspiration. Now the final N help us to remember inferiorly. It pulls the scapula inferiorly and anteriorly during stabilization of the scapula. It pulls it inferiorly and anteriorly. The N helps us to remember inferiorly, because the second letter of inferior have a letter N. So it helps us remember inferiorly and anteriorly. We have come to the end of this section on the muscles of the pectoralis major. The next video we'll be talking about the subclavius and the serratus anterior. I hope you learned something new today. Thank you for watching.